Hello, everybody out there in our listening and viewer land. This is Michael James with another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This is being recorded on the 15th of February for the week of February 18th. And we've got some really neat guests coming on today. We have our wonderful Alderwoman Maria Hadden here in the 49th Ward is going to give us a ward report. We're going to link up with my cousin Adam James out in California, who played football for Northwestern and is quite the analytical mind when it comes to sports, has a lot of information. And then our own Lynn Orman is back from her trip to the Grammys, and she will give us a little report. I just wanted to say that we talk about it being live from the Heartland, and for newer listeners or newer viewers, we've been around for 20 some odd years, and we used to do the show from the stage at the Heartland Cafe. And at a certain point, WLUW, Loyola's station, asked us to actually host the show rather than someone from the college. And a number of us got involved. And over the years, we did the show not only at the Heartland, we did it in the Red Line Tap, we did it at the No Exit Cafe. And then after Katie Hogan and I sold the Heartland, we moved it downtown. We did it from the WLUW studios. And then when we got the pandemic, we had to start doing it via Zoom from home, which does allow us to do people from all over the world. So right now, I'm just going to tell you that you can get us at WLUW 88.7, WLUW.org, podcasts on YouTube and Spotify. And we are on Thursday nights at 9 o'clock, channel 21 on CAN TV. And let me just say that a lot of people, a lot of interns, unpaid and then later paid, have helped to contribute to the blossoming of the show. Those of you who watch it notice, on YouTube or CAN TV, there's a lot of visuals now. And I want to thank Emilio Davis, who started on that. And that project has been continued by Hal James. And we do have to pay these people. So you might want to contact me at fatback@AOL if you want to chip in. Enough said for now. That's what I had to share. So one of the best things that happened to me this week just was a little bit ago. I drove downtown with my old friend David Orr. He's a retired guy, used to be the Cook County clerk. He was the mayor of Chicago for a couple of days after the wonderful Harold Washington passed away. And David and I were going downtown because David was giving a talk along with Jan Schakowsky, our congresswoman, endorsing Chuy Garcia for mayor. And I'm going to have Hal play a little clip of a few things that Chuy said at that endorsement session.
We're going to have friends and allies like these two individuals who will help guide us, who will inform us about how to move Chicago forward, how to bring a multiracial across the city coalition together and establish a solid basis of government in Chicago, one that responds to the needs of people in every neighborhood.
Okay. On a not so good front, we have serious situation in Turkey and in Syria, not to mention Ukraine, Haiti, the Sudan, Peru. In our own country here in the United States, the gun violence is out of control. So please pay attention to the news. I know it can be overwhelming, but we need to know what's going on so that we can take positions when we need to. The president of Brazil showed up in the United States for a little visit. And before he met with the president, he met with Bernie Sanders and with the Progressive Caucus. Lula is quite a guy. He's a little bit like Bernie. And I got a report from Al Jazeera about something that he had promised. Brazil has had a situation with illegal mining operations in the Amazon, a lot of it on indigenous people's lands, and Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, he's had clashes with wildcat gold miners. The leaders of the Yanomami tribe blame illegal mining for malnutrition, for the spread of disease, and rising violence in Brazil's largest indigenous reservation. This is the worst moment of invasion since the reservation was established 30 years ago. And this week, government agents destroyed illegal mining infrastructure and confiscated fuel and boats, a sharp reversal of former President Bolsonaro's policy of Amazon development, which the Yanomami people blame for the increased mining. Okay, that's a little bit of report from Brazil. Here at home, also on the Indigenous Peoples Front and sovereign rights, up in Haywood, Wisconsin, the Lac du Flambeau Reservation, natives there have blocked the roads that are running through the reservation over the issue of who pays for the upkeep. These roads bring white residents who bought land on one side of a lake near the reservation, can only get there if they go through native lands. And apparently, according to the Lac du Flambeau Reservation folks, they are not meeting their responsibilities. Keep you posted on that. On the election front, many of you who listen and watch this show know that we live in Chicago and we are active in Chicago. And in Chicago, we have another election coming up on the 28th, and that'll be a week from Tuesday. And there's a lot at stake. We need to, we're going to elect a new mayor or keep the one we have. There's a lot of good candidates. It's getting a little acrimonious. I would rather people see the good that the others have done, but whoever you're for, it's really important to get out there and vote. And I would suggest that you look into, you can vote early, but you can wait till election day and you can get a lot of information out there if you're looking for it. You want to look into the mayor's race. You want to look into the police district councils. And actually next week, it looks like we're going to have Chuy Garcia on, and we're going to have Don Rose coming on again with his analysis. So I think that's enough for right now. We're going to be right back with our first guest, Maria Hadden. So stay tuned here on the left end of your dial or wherever you may be finding the show, live from the Heartland. We're here for you. Hey, we're back. We're back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of February 18th. And once again, we are recording this on the 15th. And I'm really happy to bring on one of my favorite political people in the world, and that would be the one, the only, my Alderwoman, Maria Hadden. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, it really is. And it's great to have you here.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here with you, Michael.
I know you're working hard. There's a lot going on in our ward, in our city, and all around town. You were elected almost 4 years ago. You beat a longtime incumbent, and you are now up for your first re-election campaign. You're actively involved with that. And one of the things that keeps coming up from people who, both in support of you as well as people who are critical, is the situation around the homeless encampment at Tui Park. And I myself have really thought you've been very transparent and open and done a lot of good things about it. It clearly irks some people. Give us a little bit of your thoughts on the Tui Park homeless issue and the broader homeless issue.
Sure. We're in a crisis. We have a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness right now. While it's certainly always something that is impacting residents in our city, I think the past couple of years, economic hardship, pandemic, more economic hardship, rising housing costs, just a lot of factors have caused an increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness. Finding affordable housing is very difficult. There's not a day in my office that goes by where we're not having residents reach out to us about affordable housing issues. And so the problem of homelessness is something that's a city problem that we all should be involved in providing solutions to. And certainly as an elected official, that's one of my jobs. I think that a lot of times when problems that are universal social problems show up in your backyard, when you haven't had to deal with them before, it can cause a lot of tension. So I think our community has actually been really fantastic in coming through in official and unofficial ways to provide support and assistance for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. My office and the Department of Family and Support Services have worked really hard to find housing for people because that is the solution, right? To people experiencing homelessness is to find them housing. And over this 18 months, we've matched 84 people with housing. through rapid rehousing events. So I feel like we're in a good place. But as I've had conversations with neighbors, both in large group and public meetings and small groups, and in my written communications, I think the important thing for people to realize is this isn't, there's no magic solution. The problem of homelessness is not going away anytime soon. What we have to get better about are the funds, the resources, and the programs that we have available to help our constituents, one, hopefully avoid becoming homeless, but two, if they are experiencing homelessness, to find a swift path out of it. So it's going to continue to be an issue for our city, and I imagine for our neighborhood in the coming years.
Well, I hear a lot of discussion about it, and there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, I drive by there every day, and that encampment on Tui has really been very orderly and kind of a peaceful vibe. And I noticed as recent as yesterday, there are very few of those tents left. It clearly it's sort of been clearing out. There was talk about turning that building that belonged to St. Francis Hospital across from the Jewel. Is that still in play for a place for residency for people?
Yeah, so it wasn't just talk. We had a very large, in-depth community process about proposed shelter there. So Northside Housing, which has operated a shelter, a men's shelter specifically on the north side of the city for the past 40 years, is looking for a new home. They were forced out of their facility in December of 2021 due to landlord negligence in their facility in Uptown. So they had to leave that facility, find temporary housing for their clients for more than a year now, and had been looking for a new home. So with more than 70% of our residents surveyed, and that was like over 1,200 people in support of it, it is part of a key social network we need in order to help people come out of homelessness. So their shelter will be for around 70 people. They serve men experiencing homelessness, and it's a residential facility where average client stays about 80 days. So there are different types of shelters throughout the city. There are insufficient spaces. This won't be a shelter that, hey, someone experiencing homelessness, like right now, right, living unsheltered, can just like get a spot in right away. But it is part of our larger system of helping people to come out of homelessness. So the other thing the city's doing is purchasing a few of the motels over on Lincoln Avenue in the 40th Ward to increase the space available that nonprofits in the city have in order to provide housing for people who are experiencing homelessness.
Thank you for sharing that. That's good information, and I'll certainly spread the news on that. Any
Yeah.
timeline on that building up there on Clark?
We've actually got a big meeting on Friday. So the process that we had was to, get community support because they need a special use permit. Now, special use permit is granted and goes under the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they're in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals this Friday. And so we've got, some folks coming to speak in support of it. We've submitted all the information from our community process as well. And should they gain the approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals, they'll be able to move forward with their purchase and construction. They think June they'll be open. So we've also, if everyone's ever interested in anything related to any development process that we've had, you can find it on the website, 49thward.org. There is a tab that says development proposals. You can look at past development proposals, current proposals, see all the data, the survey results, all the updates that we put there. So so that one, hopefully everything goes well on Friday and we're able to, do our part in the 49th Ward to continue to provide more options for people experiencing homelessness throughout the city.
I'll be checking out the progress as I hit the McGaw, and Evanston in the mornings for a swim.
There you go.
I love driving up Clark on my way to doing that, checking out the neighborhood. Maria Hadden, in addition or beyond the homelessness encampment and those questions, what issue, what topic have you had the most pushback on, and how have you responded, or how might you respond?
That's a big one, and you touched on the shelter already. There's a small percentage of people who were really strongly against the shelter being located there. From our survey, like I said, we had like 72% in support. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I get strong pushback on. Um, Sometimes I don't get strong pushback on a lot. I guess I'll say the TUI Park and the shelter are probably the biggest things. Some of the things people question. It's hard to give. I'll say I'm careful not to give credence to misinformation. There's a lot of people pushing a lot of misinformation. I'll say even around development, maybe, and that's a good topic to talk about. There's a handful of people, mainly in the real estate industry, who've been pretty vocal about how, oh, Maria Hadden, cancels all these developments and, doesn't let development go forward. And it's really unfortunate that people have to resort to misinformation in order to try and prove a point. But I'll say we've got a really great community development process in the 49th Ward. You can also find that on our webpage. And while we're not a ward that has a ton of available space for new construction, so like we're not like a 47th Ward or like a first ward where you're going to see a lot of new developments. But we are seeing a lot of building rehabs. And then we've got two exciting proposals at Howard and Paulina and Howard and Ashland that people should check out on the website. Howard and Paulina has proposed about 110 units of affordable housing, brand new commercial space, looking to preserve that historic Warner building and bring some beautiful new construction in an equitable transit-oriented development project right to Howard Street next to the Red Line. So likely have some community meetings on that starting in April as the owners of that space and the developers of that project get some through some of their city hurdles. And then we've been working for a couple of years, both through first the community process and now through a bit of process with the city for the two city-owned lots, or only two publicly owned lots at Howard and Ashland, where the Peterson Garden is right now, or the Hello Howard Garden, where we're looking to build some 30 to 40 units of new affordable home ownership opportunities with a new low equity co-op. So, we don't have a ton of opportunity for building new things, but I've been focused a lot on building quality, lasting projects that are really meeting the needs of 49th Ward residents.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I do appreciate how I get you to come on and give a little tour talking about the neighborhood. And I'm sure we'll have you back and you'll keep us posted. A couple of things that have come up, there is it was a medical marijuana facility. I think it's called Zen Leaf, and it's on Rogers, I believe.
Yes.
And it's, I was in there once, I confess, checking it out. And I'm wondering, there's talk about relocating that. Anything on that?
Yeah. So again, that was one of our larger community meetings that was attended. It's called Zen Leaf. Verano Holdings owns Zen Leaf, and so it was the Green Gate dispensary. It was a medicinal dispensary, but when recreational licenses became available, they were automatically granted to people who already had medicinal licenses. So that initial individual owner sold to Verano Holdings, and it's now Zen Leaf. So they've been looking for another location since they purchased that space. The original dispensary really catered to kind of just folks in the neighborhood. Zen Leaf is one of the biggest brands, and they like to think of themselves as the Apple Store of cannabis products. So I haven't been to one of their stores yet, but so they want to keep a location in Rogers Park, but they need a bigger space and they have a few other needs, mainly access to a lot of parking and they want a location near kind of high areas of vehicle transit. So they initially had their eyes on the old Leonis site, so over at Sheridan and Moore. So we went through a whole community process because they would require a zoning change for that location. But through community feedback and ultimately after that multi-100-person community meeting, we had another locally owned business that expressed an interest in the Leonis site. And so I declined to approve their zoning permit at that time. So for those who have not been aware of some of these neighborhood happenings, it's JB Alberto's who expressed an interest in the Leonis site to purchase it, rehab it, do a fast casual space. So there's still some interest there. The owner currently says he doesn't want to sell his space. He's giving it in kind to an aldermanic candidate who's been using it as his campaign office for a few months, and that's a whole other story. But we
I'm not going there.
we looked for locations for Zenleaf. So there's pretty tight zoning restrictions in the city of Chicago for cannabis dispensaries. So you can't just set up anywhere. And there were very few locations in our ward that were kind of meeting their needs, but also meeting the city criteria. One of the first places before they selected Leona's that we really kind of tried to push them to was actually the Gateway Center. So the big shopping center at Howard and Clark with the Jewel and a bunch of other spaces. It's kind of like the one space where you find a few more of the kind of corporate or franchise businesses in the 49th Ward. It also is right there at the Howard Red Line stop. It's at Clark and Howard. You get Evanston traffic as well, and there's plenty of parking. So they finally came back around and are actually looking at a location at the Gateway Center. So what used to be the Diamond Room for a short while, the Ethiopian Diamond, it's just the space just north of Aspen Dental. So they are submitting some language. They don't need a zoning change. They'll have to do an amendment to the plan development. So that project is a plan development or PD. So there'll have to be a text amendment to that to add the use of cannabis dispensary in order for them to lease the space. So we'll be bringing that to folks, I think, at our March town hall. So we likely won't go through a whole other community process. We have a ton of data where people were really supportive of the dispensary, but wanted a different location. I think this will provide a solution for everybody.
Oh, that sounds good. And we don't know any more about Leona's site. I mean, I think I was talking to people at JB Alberto's, and he had told me that it really wasn't going to work out. Me, I have always think about opening another place, but at 81, I'm not going to do it. I promise.
I'm hoping so the space has been vacant of a tenant for like 6 years now. So it's been vacant since before I came in. And at one point, the current owner, before I was even sworn into office technically, but after I'd won the election, he came talking about wanting to do some kind of high-rise development. So I'm not sure what his initial intentions were when he bought the space, but we've had nearly a half dozen local people interested in leasing or buying that space, but he hasn't budged on his price. There's been a lot of barriers he's kind of put in the way. So I'm hoping that maybe with some changing times, maybe he'll change his mind, become more amenable. But people have wanted to do an event space. People have wanted to do a cidery. People have wanted to do restaurants. So it's a coveted location. I hope that he, after 6 years of it being vacant and doing nothing with it, I hope that, he's able to find a tenant or a buyer that would benefit our community.
That'd be great. Let me ask about lead pipes. Someone brought up lead pipes. I know that there's people in the neighborhood checking on pipes. Some company, I don't know, is out of Texas, but they were in my backyard. And what's going on with lead pipes in our neighborhood?
I don't know about this company in from Texas.
I could have been from anywhere. It could have been
I can tell you that one, 24/7, 365. If you're worried and want to check, we have free lead testing kits. You can call 311 or go through the website and get a free lead testing kit. 2023 finally starts the city's efforts of kind of mass lead service line replacement, though. So every new water main replacement project and sewer main replacement project that's been kind of planned out for this year going forward will also include free lead service line replacement for building owners and homeowners in that area. So we've got the project at at Ashland and Birchwood and kind of Rogers right now. That project was slated last year. It was supposed to start last summer. So that project won't include it. But we have two more big water projects in our ward this year And when those projects get kicked off, they have included in the cost of the project free lead service line replacement. So I think from all the kind of capital money we've put towards it, we're going to finally see more of the lead service line replacement happening in homes around the city.
That sounds good.
Mhm.
Maria Hadden, let me ask you about police community relations. We have this election coming up on the 28th, and one of the most important things, besides electing a mayor and other officials, is this new police district councils or police oversight or community control of the police. I mean, we're really moving in a good direction. And I'm just wondering, there isn't enough talk, I don't feel, about it anywhere about that aspect of the election. But just in general, how are police community relations in our ward?
I think they're pretty good, at least with my office. We have pretty low attendance at CAPS meetings. So I think one of the challenges that we're really hoping the district council electeds can do is to create those spaces for community police engagement. So you can, the last CAPS meeting I was at, there was like 2 people, right? So a lot of people don't come to CAPS meetings, but CAPS meetings aren't the way they used to be 20 years ago. There's not a lot of information exchange because there's it's not allowed to, right? So there's some challenges with the structure of the CAPS program right now that I think make a lot of people feel like, they can go and share some information. Police can go and share some information, but that's pretty much it. What we see in our district is we have a very active kind of community policing program. They do a lot of activities, outreach to the high schools and youth programs. But unless you're completely tapped into that, there's no kind of other real space. Like when we get to discussions about police policies or police staffing, right? Kind of things like that I think I get a lot of questions on, or that come down to impacting the service delivery in our area. There haven't been spaces for that. And that's what we're looking to see with these new district council members, elected officials who can build these additional bridges and spaces so that constituents can talk more with our police. And hopefully that the goal is we have better services.
That is good. Maria Hadden, let me ask you a little bit about our schools and our treasured parks. We are the location of a big chunk of Chicago's lakefront with the Great Lake, Michigan. We have a beautiful park up here, Loyola Park. Anything you want to share about schools and our parks?
Our schools are doing really great. I'll say, if you guys haven't seen it yet, we've got 2 really cool Black History Month activities coming up. So one is actually at Eugene Field. So on Thursday, the 23rd at 4 p.m. We've got a post on it on my Facebook page. You can register. But Sherman Dilla Thomas is going to be a guest speaker, kind of historian, Chicago historian, to come and talk with students and community members at Eugene Field. So that's pretty cool. Our schools are always doing, I think, pretty great programs and projects like that, offering opportunities for even if you don't have kids, right? For you to come in. And then we've got great annual Black History Month assembly taking place February 26th at 12:30 at the Loyola Park Fieldhouse. Spring programming will be starting in the parks pretty soon as well. And so whether it's a park near you or another park in our ward, I would encourage people to check out the Park District's website. Check out, we have a School Shine in 49 section in the newsletter. So if you're ever curious what's going on in the schools, there's a lot of good stuff. And they're always looking for volunteers, I will say. And so if you have some free time on your hands, they're both good places to tap into.
When I was coming back from this press conference where David Orr came out and Jan Chakowski came out for Chewy, I went to get on the L, and the escalator was not working, and there was just a line of young people coming up the stairs. And all of a sudden I realized they were from Senn High School. So I had a little bit of a nice little dialogue and talked about you and all that kind of thing. What is the best part of your job, Maria?
Oh, let's see. There are a lot of good parts. Anything where I get to just engage with people directly in person, really. Um, the last couple weeks, I've had a few visits at just some of our independent living senior homes where I'll tell you guys, you heard it here first. This week, I committed to this year or next planning a senior dance. Um, uh,
I'm
yeah,
in.
yeah. So the folks over at Natalie Salmon
To do
House
the jitterbug.
are willing to host. Jitterbug is too old for you, Michael. Nice try, nice try. But getting to engage with people, like, we're not always the source of programming, but I get to participate and highlight different programming and doing things where I get to add to our community building, knitting our social fabric together, getting to actually fulfill people's requests. Sometimes that actually happens. Like things work and we can solve little problems. That's probably the best part.
Well, you're doing a good job, and I just want to say I love you. I do, and I really appreciate the work you're doing. And I'm rooting for you in this next election. And it won't be long. We'll have you right back on the show.
Won't be long. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate
Thank you, Maria Hadden. And all you people listening or watching, we'll be right back. We're going to take a short musical break, and we're coming back with my cousin who played football at Northwestern and is quite a sports information kind of a guy. And we'll be right back with that. And then we're going to have Lynn Orman coming on and talking about her little visit to the West Coast for the Grammys. We're back. We're back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of the 18th of February. And we are recording on the 15th. And, going toward the end of the show, we put the sports section at the back. And that's what we're going to do now. I've got my cousin Adam James on. He's out there in California. He played football at Northwestern. Was quite a jock, this guy. And he moved to California. He's been a trainer for a long time, and he's now working in a movie. Tell us a little bit about that movie before we do the sports. Doc Savage.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great to be here, Michael. I really appreciate it. Of course, to everybody there in Chicago and the Heartland, love you all. Hope everything's going great. Stay warm. Yes, so Doc Savage is a new web series that's going to be coming out on Roku, Tubi, Freebie, and a few other streaming platforms. It's based or inspired by the original 1930s Pulp Fiction character, Doc Savage. He's a scientist, adventurer, detective, and martial artist. And what we've done is we've kind of brought him into the modern era. He was, in the 1930s, one of the most popular characters in all of popular culture. A very successful Pulp Fiction character along with The Shadow. And they did a movie in the 1970s starring Ron Ellie, who had played Tarzan in the Tarzan television series. And it just hadn't gotten the traction over the years like Batman and Superman and some of the other superhero characters. But many people consider Doc Savage the original American superhero. And so we're doing a brand new web series based on this character, along with his team of experts. They take on an international evil mastermind. And it's really cool little project. We filmed the first episode up in Fresno, California. We're doing a sneak preview, little mini premiere of the series, just showing episode 1 in a raw cut form at the Martial Arts History Museum on March 11th, which is located in Burbank, California, part of the greater Los Angeles area. So for any of you out there who are listening, who are in Southern California, the premiere will be at the Martial Arts History Museum on March 11th. And come on over if you're in Southern California and want to see a cool episode.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this, Adam. And you and I worked in some of Andy Davis's movies together. And this is the SAG Screen Actors Guild movie. So we're standing with the union. Okay, this is a sports report. So besides Doc Savage rescuing the world or whatever, let's talk. One of the big things that led me to call you was you had texted me and said, hey, Northwestern's playing Purdue right now. And then I learned later, I didn't go see it, and that Northwestern beat #1 Purdue. Give us the sports report. Start with Purdue losing to Northwestern.
Well, yes, it's a really great story for Chicago sports fans. The Northwestern basketball team has been on an upward trajectory with Coach Chris Collins, who was Doug Collins' son. He was the former Chicago Bulls coach. And Chris Collins done a great job, got him to the tournament 4 years ago. They kind of lost a little bit of that momentum the last 2 years, but this year's team is really playing well. They've got some great players. And yes, they just played ranked Purdue at home. Huge win. Some people call it an upset. For us Wildcats, it was how it was supposed to end. And we stormed the court and celebrated with the team. So that was exciting. A lot of great things happening for Northwestern sports. Of course, there is talk of a remodeling of Ryan Field, the Northwestern football team's stadium. And the project will become, it is designed to become one of the best facilities in all of the country for in-person game day experience, up-to-date modern technology, all the great amenities will be at this little stadium. It's also going to be smaller than any other stadium in the Big Ten Conference and one of the smallest in the country, but they're hoping to make it a more intimate experience, highlighting all those things that make Northwestern and its athletic program special.
And they'll still be right next to Mustard's Last Stand, where you can get a Chicago-style hot dog, and they will give you ketchup if you want it. Okay.
That's right.
How about women's rankings? I think there are 5 Big Ten teams in the top 16.
That is correct. The Big Ten Conference continues to do extremely well, academically, of course, but also athletically. And the women's programs have just continued to get stronger and better, perform better. A lot of exciting things happening for women's sports and women's basketball. And of course, with the entire college basketball scene getting ready to go to the postseason, conference championships in both men's and women's, and then the national tournaments. Should be a really great time for sports fans this spring.
Well, we've got March Madness coming. How long will that last? And you got any prediction on who will win it all?
It now goes into April Madness. But yeah, we're hoping for a really great tournament again this year. Each year, you always get these amazing upsets. That's what makes it so fun and exciting. So
on the pro basketball front, in the women's sector, the WNBA, there's been a lot of trading, bolstering the positions of both Las Vegas and New York. And LeBron broke the record on scoring. Michael Jordan's turning 60.
Yes. Yes, there's some monumental moments that just happened in basketball. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, not only one of the great basketball players of history, many people say the greatest, but more importantly, a great human being, a great activist, a great thinker, writer, and he, of course, held that position as all-time leading scorer for 4 decades. He broke Wilt Chamberlain's record, and now LeBron has passed his. Worthy successor. LeBron has been a phenomenal player, great professional. Wishing him all the success. And of course, Michael Jordan, who many people consider better than both Kareem and LeBron, is about to have his 60th birthday. And he's doing a very generous thing. He's making the largest individual contribution or donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, $10 million. Just going to show that those people who achieve greatness, when they pay it forward and they pay it back to the community, makes a huge impact. So thank you, Michael.
That's good. All right. So golf. I don't follow golf a lot. I do like watching it, though. And, during the Tiger Woods time that I was always paying close attention, it was exciting. Yes. I do enjoy watching it, but there's some big controversy going on in golf between different associations. What can you tell us about that?
Well, essentially, there's one major association, and this golf association has done incredibly well, PGA for the men's, and then they've done very, very well. They've grown over the years. It's kind of like the NFL and the NBA. It's got an established record. There's a new golf tournament that is funded by the Saudi Arabian fund, and many people have concerns about the money, where it's coming from, whether or not Saudi Arabia as a nation is using this sponsorship in order to affiliate itself with a very wonderful, culturally important, popular sport. And the men and women that play that, or men in this case with this tournament, LIV tournament. And so as a result, there are a lot of people who are concerned about this tournament and this organization. Others think it's a great thing. Competition is important, and not having and controlling all men's professional golf has some people saying, "Hey, this is good for the growth of the sport." We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out in the end, whether this tournament can even get traction. There's some aspects of it that make real sports fans less intrigued. It's not nearly the same tournament level as the PGA as far as the number of rounds and what you need to do in order to make the cut. The live doesn't make the cut.
Adam James, we're going to, I'm just going to let everyone know that baseball opens, the spring training starting pretty quickly, and the White Sox open against Houston on March 30th. Let's go to the Olympics, because one of the things that there's all these controversy whether the athletes can perform unaligned to a country. And the other thing that's come up is maybe getting rid of boxing. So address those two things.
Well, yes. The last Olympics was a perfect example. During this last Olympics, Russia had started its invasion, and the Russian athletes were not allowed to participate, but they did. And they did it under the International Olympic Committee banner, but still they had the opportunity to compete, which is good for the athletes, bad for the message as far as holding an authoritarian regime accountable for its atrocities and not allowing them to get, good publicity, good public relations marketing, so to speak, by their athletes in these type of international competitions. So it's a lot of people who think that they should be allowed to compete, whether it's tennis players in the tennis tournaments or Olympic athletes. Let the athletes play. But others feel that, no, we have to hold these countries accountable for what they're doing.
I'm holding up a little bumper sticker, do sports, not war, athletes united for peace.
Fantastic. Now with boxing, boxing itself is a controversial sport. Many people are not fans of boxing and MMA. I am, love it, love the sports, love the athletes. Some people have concerns, but boxing in particular has a long history of involvement with the Olympics, but it's possibly going to come to an end, at least temporarily, maybe forever, because of some of the political aspects. Speaking of, not doing war, one of the amateur body that controls the amateur sport of boxing. They are based in Switzerland, but their major sponsor is a Russian energy company. So they recently made the decision to allow not only for the athletes of Belarus and Russia to participate in the international championships, but to also have their flags and national anthems played if they win. As a result, the United States of America, Ireland, and Great Britain are all boycotting these tournaments. They're saying, no, if you're going to allow that, we won't participate. Also, there's been a lot of concerns about the judges and the fairness and how that's unfolded over the years. Of course, there's horrible stories of tremendous athletes being denied their victory, like Roy Jones Jr., because of unfair judging. And recently, the International Olympic Committee gave some very specific pushback to the International Boxing Association in regards to how their rules are set up. And the IOC was basically saying, in order for you to be recognized as an amateur sport in our arena in the Olympics, you're going to have to make these changes. And the International Boxing Association said, no, thanks. So we'll see what happens, but it looks like it's not going to happen. We'll see. Right now, it's not on the list for sports at the 28.
Well, I got to say that I do like boxing, although as I get older, sometimes it's just too gruesome. But your uncle, my dad, was in advertising, and one of his accounts was Philly Cigars, and he produced the International Boxing Commission Saturday Night Fights on ABC. So I grew up, knowing a lot about boxing, and actually went to a great a match between Kid Gavilan and Bobo Olson. Followed the jet Airstream trailer with the TV crew in the 50s up to Boston. So we'll talk more about boxing. We're going to run out of time here for our little sports segment and family segment on Live from the Heartland. And I'll see you at the family Zoom, because one of the best things about the pandemic was that your dad, my Uncle David, created a family Zoom with all of his kids and with my sister and myself, and who knows what members of the family join up. So I'll see you on Sunday, Adam.
Outstanding. Thanks for having me. Have a wonderful day.
And stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland. Our music producer, Lynn Orman, is coming on. She's going to give us a little update on the Grammys. Be right back. Hey, we're back. We're back with the Live from the Heartland show for the week of February 18th. And it's really neat to bring on Lynn Orman, who has brought us so much great music. And I know she disappeared in the past week, and she went, I think, to California to cover the Grammys. So we're having a Grammy report right now. How about it? And you are a grandmother too. But
I'm exactly. I went from the Grammys to I dove right in. I got in. I took the red eye. gone in at 5:30 a.m., slept for 5 hours. The flight, United flight, was packed with performers leaving LA, like Wayne Baker Brooks and Damon Ranger and Heather Blaze. Everybody was on my flight, my son, my daughter-in-law. And I slept for 5 hours and jumped right into being a Grammy. Grandma, that is.
I understand.
In Rogers Park.
How was that trip out there to the West Coast? And
oh my God.
Who won and who's been on our show? How did they do? Give us the report.
Well, here's my takeaway. And as of coming home, I really thought to myself, okay, from now on, some of those red carpet interviews and stuff, I'm going to do them and edit them and get them to you so we can have some behind the scenes red carpet reports with some artists. I mean, some of the most memorable things for me, well, at the show was Sheryl Crow, Bonnie Raitt, and Mick Fleetwood, who did an unbelievable tribute to Christy McVie. That was one of the highlights for me. I mean, it was just really beautiful. They did a tribute to, her song from Rumors. I think it was Songbird, which is one of my absolute favorites and really a beautiful moment. But the other beautiful moment was, if you've seen some of the reports, some unknown blues artist, female, older woman took Song of the Year. How could that be? How could somebody win over Taylor Swift and Adele and Harry Styles? How could that be? And she won. Bonnie Raitt won for Just Like That. And it's become a #1 Billboard hit. Her second only #1 Billboard hit. If you remember, in Nick of Time was the other one that won. But it was so beautiful, Michael. To me, sitting in the second row watching the premiere telecast, which is the preview, that if you log on, you could still watch it. It's live.grammy.com. And it was just this poetic moment because Judy Collins was the one that was giving out the Grammy. And she gave it to Bonnie Raitt. It was just really sweet. She was visibly very humbled and excited. She won 3 awards. She also won for Best Americana Performance. She gave a nod to the Americana category for all this inclusiveness, which was wonderful, for Made Up My Mind. And, she just beat out Adele and Lizzo and Swift and a number of people. And she's won 13 Grammys now, and she's been nominated 30 times. But I just wanted to share something really quick. She sent me a note after the shoot up and the massacre in Highland Park. And I went to her concert, and her record company made sure that she sent a note that we could share with everybody. And she said, let's keep living for the ones who didn't make it by working to heal the rifts between us and enacting wiser policies for safer guns and mental health. With remembrance, Bonnie. And I'll send you a copy of it, but I've got this beautiful note that she sent me. So just very much a wonderful humanitarian. The other wonderful, maybe I would say, some people would say it was an upset, was Edgar Winter. Edgar Winter won for his album Brother Johnny, which was a tribute to his brother and had all kinds of fabulous artists on it. Bobby Rush, Joe Bonamassa, the last performance of Taylor Hawkins, the drummer from Dave Grohl's band. Some really amazing CD recording. And he actually said, it was very weird because he, all of a sudden, this white-haired man with sunglasses and his record company exec sat right next to me at the Grammys. So that was exciting. The other one, which I think is very respectable and exciting, and I'd love to have him on our show, is Jay Ivey. Jay Ivey won for Best Spoken Word for Poetry, a brand new category. And the poet that sat by the door. He is a Chicago homeboy, went to high school here and said he was inspired by his English teacher in high school. He's been on records with Kanye. He actually on this record is John Legend, which he professes. He gave him the name Legend, which is great. But Jay Ivey, if you could catch him, he is fantastic. My other all-time favorite that is not televised but was on the premiere was Boo Mitchell and Martin Shore won for an album called Stompin' Ground from their documentary called Take Me to the River, which featured New Orleans music. We've had Bobby Rush on, and Bobby Rush.
Just that line, take me to the river and wash me down.
Oh my God, Michael, we're going to have to share Stomping Ground. It's with Aaron Neville and the Dirty Dozen Brass Band. And Boo is, a Grammy-winning producer, and they won, as well as the movie won for, I think it's called The History of New Orleans, which is a tip of the hat to, from Quint Davis to George Wayne, who started the Newport Jazz Festival and the Folk Festival. But
I went to the Newport Jazz Festival in my youth, 1961, I think I went.
Did you really? You have photos?
I hung out on the beach with Horace Silver and Olatunji. And, Horace Silver was from Norwalk, Connecticut, and he went to church at my adopted brother's. His mom was the teacher. And also Olatunji, I then brought to Lake Forest College.
No kidding. I
was with Don Law, whose father was a heavy hitter in Columbia Records. And this would have been the summer of 61. Anyhow, so back to any Chicago winners? Is Ivy from Chicago?
They did not win the children's best album, but to me, that was the best album in the children's category. Ivy and WB and Wendy Morgan for that album on Into the Little Blue House with all the blues players is extraordinary. But the Alphabet Rockers won. I held a breakfast Saturday morning before the nominees party, which I started this 30 years ago, Michael. I only had like 6 people there. This year, there were 75. And the remarkable thing, and I want to give another tip of my hat to Harvey Mason Jr. He has really worked hard as the CEO and president of the Grammys to have more diversity and inclusion. And it's been wonderful. Divinity Rocks. I mean, Falu, an Indian artist, won last year. So that's been great. And if you saw the show, anybody out there, Lizzo, she is really all about women and embracing your beauty, no matter what size you are, which was really a wonderful statement for people that are, that really, want to keep that alive and keep it important as an important, is something very important as we move into, new grounds. Also, Brandi Carlile, she won for Best Rock Album, which surprised the crap out of her. It was really, over Jeff Beck. And speaking of which, okay, I'll tell you my one vote of contention. Buddy Guy didn't win, but respectfully, Taj Mahal and Ry Cooder walked away with Best Traditional Album, which was joyful. Buddy has 8, but Buddy opened the ceremony, the premiere ceremony with the Blind Boys of Alabama. And that was really incredible. And Shoshana Bean, but he only had 2 minutes on stage. How wonderful would it have been if they would have put Buddy Guy on the live broadcast with a tribute to Jeff Beck?
Would have been great.
Right? So that's my only faux pas.
Well, this has been a great report. I have more enthusiasm for the Grammys. I've never really gotten into watching them, but I certainly like your report, and I know I'll listen to that and watch it a few times in the course of looking at this show. And next year, I'll be paying really close attention to the Grammys.
Well, I think it's really important that people know, and probably with the other organizations as well, that it's not only about the live broadcast, that they help musicians in need, down on their luck, addiction, mental health issues. So, there's a lot more education. So I'm happy to come on and give that a report anytime. And it's delightful to be with you.
Well, I'll keep working with you, booking music for this show. Thanks, Lynn. And I'm looking forward to a night when we go out and hear some music. I'm an old guy, but I vow to go out and see more live music. Okay.
Let's do it.
Thanks. We want to thank everybody who makes this show possible. We want to thank Lynn Orman, Katie Hogan, Tom Clark, Hal James, and we'll be back next week. And so far, we have commitments from Don Rose to give us a little bit of analysis leading up to the election. And as of this morning, when I talked to Chuy Garcia and people, he's coming on too. So we'll be back next week with more Live from the Heartland. You can listen to us on WLUW 88.7. It gets streamed there too. That's on Saturday mornings. You can always get it at youtube.com/Heartland Media. And now it's on CAN TV on Thursday nights, channel 21 at 9 o'clock. We'll be back next week. Keep doing good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that Lynn does, that Hal does, that all of us do. All power to the people.